Hey everyone, and welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. My name is Mike Vaughn, and I'm your host with the most. And
Yes, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I am a senior critic for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And once again, I'm excited to be back again with you, Michael, to discuss some really exciting releases. And we have a really good mixture of new and kind of oddball releases. And I am going to start off with a mainstream release. It's my most mainstream title. It is a 2022 title, and that is Liam Neeson is back, kicking butt once again in Blacklight from Universal Pictures Home Entertainment. And for those who are unaware, who have not been paying attention to trends over the last decade or so, Liam Neeson has carved himself out a niche of just kicking butt well into his twilight years. And it's resulted in a mixed bag of quality, in my opinion. And Blacklight it's unfortunately not his best. I have kind of gotten a little bit tired of just Liam Neeson kicking butt probably like 2 or 3 years ago. I feel that he's just kind of recycling and kind of getting into kind of the same type of role. And this isn't really any different. In Blacklight, he plays a government like fixer who goes in, and his main job in this one is to go in and extract agents who are deep undercover, and to make sure they get out of their situations safely. Until one mission, he comes across an agent who has information that might prove that the institution he's working for might not be on the up and up completely. And Liam Neeson is a person who's also trying to be a better grandfather and father to his daughter. He's never really been around. He's been prioritizing work. So he's trying to get back to that like humanity within him when he's been obsessed with work this whole time. So he's kind of conflicted. He's pulled between these two worlds. It's pretty cut and dry. This is the type of movie where at the beginning, if you think you know who the bad guy is, you're probably like, there's 90% chance you're right. There's not really a lot of nuance with this. It's basically Liam Neeson with a bunch of not really established people besides Aidan Quinn, who plays like his boss. And the action, there's some decent action. I would say if you're just like a hardcore action person who just needs like to scratch that itch, this might pass the time decently. It didn't really like stick with me. I watched this like 3 nights ago and it's already almost completely left my mind. It's that type of movie. But there are some good sequences. There's like a sequence where an individual hijacks like this huge truck, like this military truck. I don't think it's a tank. Once again, it's been 3 days and it's kind of cloudy already. But he like smashes through the streets of like downtown DC. That's probably like the most exciting the film gets. There's also like a few little like kind of like sniper attacks here and there. Other than that, it's just kind of it's fine. It's not great. Certainly not great, but it's a movie. It's a movie. It's not as bad as like the King's Daughter that you spoke about a couple weeks ago, but it's still just kind of like forgettable. The Blu-ray, it looks really great. It sounds really great, like as you would want a new movie to like look and sound. And it has a couple just kind of fluffy featurettes, nothing spectacular. It comes with a digital code if you're into that. Other than that, it's a Liam Neeson movie. It's not one of his best. It's not his absolute worst. It's from the director of Honest Thief, who he also he was in that a couple years ago. It's slightly worse than that in my opinion, which was still not a great movie. So yeah, if you're very interested in this movie, should you check it out? Otherwise, don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it.
Forget about it. Yeah, so my next release is probably the most opposite end of that spectrum. and
Please.
that is the Kino. It is the Miklós Janscó, I think is how it's pronounced.
You're
Or
trying your best. I like
maybe I
it.
butchered that. I'm sorry. I looked up the phonetic pronunciation and it just doesn't roll off the tongue. But it's an awesome release. I will say that clearly I'm not an expert. I can't even pronounce his name correctly, but I think I am definitely firmly becoming a fan of his films. So here is, again, the front and the back. You can see the other films. Let's see, first of all, this is the inside, has a booklet. I'll show you that. With a intro by Martin Scorsese.
Oh, wow.
Who, as we all know, is the authority of what is and is not cinema. So that's always good. So we have an intro. And what's nice is there's a little bit of information about each film. And like some really nice writings on let's see. So I watched 2 of these so far. So I did the Roundup and the Red and the White. So both films, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. Both films are really fantastic. They deal with like war and more like complex, and that is like identity and like one's humanity during conflict. Both films are incredibly well shot. I will say that like the Roundup in particular has these amazing complex tracking shots, which like we're both cinephiles, so I feel like we definitely appreciate like extremely well shot stuff like that. Both movies are definitely slower paced. I think the Red and the White's a little bit better paced in my opinion of the 2 films. But yeah, they're both pretty grueling, at times really brutal explorations of war. And yeah, it's definitely not everyone's going to kind of be into that. They're again, the pacing is a little bit tedious for me at times. I'm not really into war, but I will say that the movie has enough going on that it's super engaging. Even though, like I said, I'm not a big like war film fan. It's more about like I think the human side of war, and like different aspects of it. So yeah, I did find them really, like I said, interesting, engaging. I'm going to be checking out the rest of the films, hopefully the rest of them in the next video attic. And just because I had 2 box sets, and the other one is quite different than this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, have you ever seen any of his films?
No, I have not. I saw that they were debuting new restorations of his films, I think at the Metrograph in NYC like earlier this year. And I was like, ooh, those sound interesting. And then I saw that Kino announced the set, and I was like, okay, I'll finally get to see these movies, because I love finding like new pockets of world cinema that I haven't explored yet, which there's tons of it, obviously. But he seems like a director that'd be like right up my alley. So I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. And what's nice is, his short films are included. There's a lot of like audio commentary tracks on each film that provides a lot of really great like historical context. Again, I didn't know a lot about this period in time and these conflicts, so the commentary tracks definitely helped me like understand, I guess, like the broader sort of historical context behind these films, which I think is like really important, especially if you're not like, I'm not a scholar on these things by any means. So yeah, I think that if you really want to get into these, I think that the commentary tracks are a must listen to. And their new 4K scans, they're incredible looking. Kino never like half-asses their releases. This is certainly no different. So yeah, I'm really excited to. I've already kind of started watching some of the other films and taking notes. So I am really having a good time, really exploring his films. So
Well, I'm excited to hear about your second part of your experience with this set. That's exciting. My next release is from Ronin Flicks, and it is the movie Game 6, which I believe came out in 2005. It stars Michael Keaton, and it's Robert Downey Jr., Ari Grainer, Bebe Newworth, and Catherine O'Hara, and Griffin Dunn. Sorry, there's a bunch of people. They kind of have like bit roles, but Michael Keaton is the main person. So this takes place in the titular Game 6 in 1986 of the World Series. It takes place in New York, but Michael Keaton plays like a lifelong Red Sox fan. And obviously at this time, the Sox hadn't won a World Series in decades and decades. They thought they were cursed. And while this positions itself like in the world of sports, it's not really a sports movie. It's just kind of like that is the event that this one day is kind of leading up towards, and you get to see all the kind of drama in this man's life. Michael Keaton, he plays a playwright, and he has a new play opening up on the same night as this like pivotal game in the World Series. And even though it came out after this, it kind of reminded me, if you've ever seen it, of David Cronenberg's Cosmopolis with Robert Pattinson, because this is basically Michael Keaton going through the day. He used to be a taxi driver, and he keeps getting into these taxis and just like telling these taxi drivers, like, I used to be a taxi, and like relaying his experiences and trying to like form a connection. And like, it's all these people from like different parts of the world. And like every so often he'll get out of the taxi and have like a long conversation with one of like the ensemble cast members, mostly about his like life and regrets and the Sox and just kind of issues with his daughter and his infidelity with his wife. So he's like dealing with a lot of like existential issues throughout this day. And overall, I quite enjoyed this movie. It was very entertaining. This was kind of pre-revival of like Robert Downey Jr. This was like Michael Keaton when he was still kind of like in a lull in his career. But they all do like really solid work. And one of the things that I was very intrigued by to like learn about this is it's based on a screenplay by Don DeLillo, who wrote White Noise, the book White Noise, and like a ton of other famous novels. And I was just like, oh, I didn't know he was a screenwriter. But it deals a lot of like legacy and just life. It's a really solid movie. I had always seen this movie, like I said, it came out in 2005. This was still at the time where I was going to like my local like brick and mortar video store to try to pick out whatever random things I had on the shelf. And I would always see this cover, and it was like always one that I was like, I'm going to rent that. And it always eluded me. And I finally saw it was coming to Blu-ray. I was like, I'm going to watch this damn movie. I need to finally see it. And while it's not like the best movie, it was like, I'm glad I finally got around to it, especially since this premiered at Sundance. And like I said earlier, I host a Sundance themed podcast. So I was like, I finally needed to get to it. This is from a new 2K scan from the Best Surviving Elements. It has a new audio commentary. The film, it looks really nice. Sounds good. Has a 2.0 stereo soundtrack. It has a making of featurette that's pretty brief, but like the audio commentary gets more into stuff. this is a really solid release for like a movie that's really kind of went under the radar. I had forgotten it existed until it was announced again. So if you like Michael Keaton, especially, this is like a really solid release, and it's like indicative of his like kind of resurgence he would have with like Birdman and films of that nature. So Game 6, it's good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. To check it out. So my next movie is from Warner Brothers, and that is Dog. And so cover and the inside. So that also does include a digital copy. This is my one kind of controversial. I see you.
I'm already laughing because I've seen your Twitter rants about this movie.
Well, okay, so this is my one sort of controversial thing. I really didn't like this movie, and I think like I'm probably the only one because everyone seems to really love it. It's got a pretty decent Rotten Tomato score. I love dogs, so I'm such a dog person that I'm really surprised that this didn't really connect with me. I don't know. It just came off kind of corny and a little bit like I don't even mind like corny and saccharine, but like this is just like in such a way I had a hard time connecting with Channing Tatum's character. Like he kind of does these like pretty like I guess this isn't really spoiling anything, but there's a scene where he pretends like, so he is a war veteran, but he pretends to be a blind war veteran to get a free really nice hotel room for his dog because a psychic told him that's what the dog wanted. Just go with it. A lot of this movie is just like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, go with it. And that's like kind of a shitty thing to do, right? Like to pretend to be like disabled to get a free room. He gets caught, and I was like, oh, so he's gonna like learn a lesson or whatever. Like, no, he like ends up just getting out of it again because he's a veteran. So it's like it's fine, I don't know. Like it's just like it's so tonally weird. There's a lot of like things that kind of feel a little bit like they don't track from point A to B, and it's very predictable. Like how this is going to end. Yeah. Have you seen it?
I have not, but I have a feeling I'm going to like it more than you. But that's fine.
Like I didn't hate it, and I will say that like Channing Tatum probably gives, I think, his best performance. Like he's great in it. It's even more impressive that he co-directed this, and I'm not recalling the guy's name, but he was a producer on the Magic Mike films, but he and Tatum directed this together, and it is well directed. I mean, it's beautifully shot. There is like some absolutely gorgeous photography in this. Like, again, it's just I'm not going to trash it. There are things that I liked about it. It's just it didn't really connect with me on a level that would make me maybe want to watch it again. But yeah, take that with a grain of salt because everybody in the world seems to just absolutely love this movie. So
yeah,
maybe
I'll judge for myself. Okay.
I mean, it's like I was like, am I just dead inside? But then I'm like probably, but then also like I definitely have other movies that I really like resonate with in a huge way. Like I don't know, it just didn't speak to me. But again, it's a really good release. It unfortunately doesn't really have any features, but it's a newer film, so it looks great. The upconvert to 1080p is really nice. Again, if you don't happen to have Blu-ray, it obviously has like a DVD copy of it. But yeah, don't take my word for it. Check it out. It just didn't really speak to me.
All right. I like I said, I'll judge for myself. I might watch it this weekend. We'll see how it goes. Maybe
Yeah,
I'll do a
I
rebuttal next week.
definitely. I sincerely want to talk to somebody that like really likes it to see like what I'm kind of missing, because again, it, I could definitely tell it was made by somebody that never directed a film. Like it's well directed, but like I can kind of see how, you know, the pacing and the plot and the narrative kind of doesn't flow in a way that feels like cohesive. Mm.
All right. We'll see. We'll see. I have something worlds different than that. I have one that I'm pretty intrigued to talk about. It is a new release from Film Movement Classics, and that is Ang Lee's directorial debut, Pushing Hands. If you are not sure where you've heard that name before, I'm disappointed in you, but he has the director of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Brokeback Mountain, and a ton of other great movies. So this is his, like I said, his directorial debut. It comes with a nice booklet here. And you can kind of see the inside just where it's like a still from the film. So yeah, this movie, it's kind of more of a personal tale. It's about a Tai Chi master who moves from Beijing to the United States. He doesn't speak English. He moves in with his like Americanized son and his wife, who is a white woman who does not speak any Chinese. And there's just kind of like that conflict of the ways that he kind of knows from like living all of his life in Beijing and the American ways, and how he's trying to fit into this culture without being able to like communicate with anyone besides other people who speak Chinese. And I'm sorry if it's like Mandarin or Cantonese or something. You know what I'm trying to say. Who speaks his language. So it's a really kind of intriguing kind of fish out of water, makes it seem like lighter than it is, but it's just kind of like a clashing of like cultures basically. And I really like this man's journey, because he's trying to like, he teaches a Tai Chi class at like the local rec center. He develops like a nice friendship with an older lady who also lived in Beijing like when she was younger. And I don't want to like get too much into like where it takes him and how like the conflicts with his family resolve, because I just kind of ruined the movie. But there are some really kind of like poignant, dramatic moments throughout, and especially with how it relates to his like teachings of like Tai Chi and what he's learned and how he applies it in his life. It's really a solid movie. If you're a fan of Ang Lee, you'll notice that he's kind of graduated from more like intimate dramas like this and The Ice Harvest and Brokeback Mountain, all the way to like Life of Pi was still like a Oscar nominated movie, but then he like went to like Gemini Man and stuff, like big like special, like he's gotten away from the intimacy to more like special effects. Like he wants to know how to use like technology for film instead of like focusing on the human story. So this is still him in his most human, which I really like, and I would recommend it to anyone who's a fan of like that kind of like small scale human drama. This comes from a new 2K restoration. It's good. I would say I've never seen this movie before. It's really good, but it is softer than I'm used to seeing like a nice 2K or 4K restoration looking. It's still like immensely cleaned up, but it's just like a really soft shot movie. So it's not as like crisp as you might expect it. So go in with like expectations in check. I think it's how the movie is supposed to look, but I don't want to give the impression that it's like the crispest movie ever, because it still kind of seems very soft. It was also probably shot in like a very like rudimentary cameras like of the time. So I will give it that. But if you are a fan of this film, I'm sure it's the best it's ever looked. There is a director's roundtable, not with Ang Lee, but like with other directors on this. And other than that, that's like the only feature besides the booklet. But overall, it's a good release. Film Movement Classics, I wish they would release more Blu-rays. They kind of just released probably 8 or 9 per year, but they always do really good work, and I'm very excited that they put this one out. I recommend it.
Yeah, that looks awesome. I actually have that one, and it's one I need to get to. But yeah, it sounds awesome. I am a big Ang Lee fan. So my next one is one that I was so excited for when I saw the trailer for this re-release, and that is from Kino and Cohen Films, and that is Dementia. And here's the back. So yeah, gosh, where do I begin? This is a creepy, surreal fever dream of a film. It's very like pulpy. It would be something like a nightmare film noir. It's very experimental from the 50s. There is no conventional dialogue in the film whatsoever. It basically just goes from like one sequence to the next, following this young woman. And, you know, it's like really violent, but, you know, it's still kind of adheres to the Hays Code. It's also overtly sexual with, again, kind of flying under the code. So this movie has a really interesting claim to fame in horror movie history. And that is because it is the film being shown in the film The Blob. They're actually showing the Daughter of Horror cut, which this release does have. Both cuts of the film are included. So the Daughter of Horror is a recut with narration by Ed McMahon, believe it or not.
Wow, okay.
Like that Ed McMahon. So yeah, this is a movie that I've had on DVD for maybe a decade now, but it looks fantastic. It is a new 2K, I think, and this is all taken from the 35 millimeter and restored. Again, it's a really, it is a 2K restoration, and it is such a cool movie. You said you haven't seen this one?
I have not.
Highly recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so, like, if you definitely like, I know we've talked a lot on the show about film noir, but this is definitely like a very like fever dream noir. You know, it's very much like if you like something like, it's maybe not as weird as like David Lynch's Lost Highway, but it kind of follows that sort of dream-like logic.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, it's a movie that I've been like tweeting about and like urging people to see, because I think it's such an underloved and underrated movie that I think that that's the kind of stuff I get really excited to talk about, because, you know, that's the stuff that maybe will fly under the radar, but I don't think it should. If you don't like art house or surreal kind of movies, you probably won't like it. You might find it actually kind of tedious, but if you like something that's like just feels like you're watching someone's like dark semi-erotic dreams, then this is the movie for you.
Sounds like the movie for me.
And listen, make it a double feature with Dog.
Okay. Maybe like that Dog will have some kind of like dream-like logic where it like kind of clicks better with me. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I am going to continue the Kino love, and I'm going to go with the movie Grand Slam, with which I'd never heard of prior to this release. But what caught my eye is, one, it stars Janet Leigh, Edward G. Robinson, Klaus Kinski, and many other people who I'm not as familiar with because they're mostly like French actors. But I'm not sure. Did I show off? No, there's not really much to the inside. Mostly I've been on like kind of an Edward G. Robinson kick lately, and it was very interesting to see him kind of like as an older man, because I don't really think I've seen him like in his like twilight years. But he plays like a school teacher who he gets like these kind of like, it's almost like kind of like an Ocean's 11 type situation, but he gets all these like international thieves together to rob like this highly fortified place in like Rio during Carnival, and it's just getting them all ready for this heist. And like Janet Leigh is kind of the person they have to, like, their mark that they have to kind of win over and get primed to like take advantage of her good nature to steal these diamonds. It's a standard like heist film. I'm not going to go into much more than that, but there are some nice twists and turns throughout. I really like all the performances. Klaus Kinski doesn't get to go full Klaus Kinski. I've talked about him several times on the podcast before, or the show before, and but he is a very entertaining part of the crew. And Janet Leigh, I think, kind of steals the show for me. She works in different modes while she's like interacting with different people from the team, and just the way she navigates the story, I really appreciate. I wish Edward G. Robinson was in it more, but he's more so in like the beginning of the end. He's like the puppet master that's not really there throughout most of it. The best part of the movie is kind of like the extended heist scene at that's the climax of the movie. It lasts probably about 25 minutes during Carnival, and it's very tense and it's executed really well. It's not a new master, and whenever I first started this movie, it's like a shot of Edward G. Robinson getting out of an airport, and it's like an optical where, because he's like not actually at an airport, and it looked pretty awful, and I was just like, oh no, there's something wrong here. But then it kicked over to like standard like non-optical footage, and like while not perfect, it looks a lot better. And mainly the movie has like really nice shots throughout, so it's like a decent older master, not perfect, probably could have done with a new scan, but like as is, it looks fine. It sounds good. It has a new audio commentary with a couple of film historians and a theatrical trailer. And overall, if you like heist films, this is like a pretty decent one. It's not breaking the mold, but it's like a very solid entry into the genre.
It's not a grand slam then.
My man.
No, I do really like heist movies. I will have to put that on my radar. So my next one is from Unearthed Classics, and that is The Evil Dead Trap.
Okay.
And
never heard of this.
Has a lot of really good extras, slipcover, and it does have reversible artwork, which is really cool because it has the like original artwork and then the re-release. So this is a movie that I actually had seen before, but it's been a while, and it's one of those, it's been such a long time that I really didn't remember a whole lot outside of the ending, which I'll not spoil, but I'll touch upon. It's definitely one of those like really wonderfully grimy, like late 80s, early 90s kind of splatterfest movies. Although I will say with The Evil Dead Trap, it's very stylish. It has a really wonderful dreamlike feeling. It's not a Goblin score, but it sounds very much like Goblin. And it's interesting because you can really see how other films, like later films, maybe took a little bit of inspiration for this film, like most notably the original Saw film. So it was a really good time revisiting this. And again, it's really packed with a lot of really good material. You know, the reflecting on the Japanese cult cinema, for example, was really interesting. You know, they did another it was Untold Story Blu-ray that I also highly recommend from Unearthed Classics, but they have a like fantastic documentary about category 3 films, which is I think like the Hong Kong, like the most extreme kind of rating, is like category 3. But just to say that, you know, they have a really great track record of like putting these fantastic like documentaries and featurettes. And the one for Evil Dead Trap is fantastic. The film looks really, really good. It's, you know, it's like lo-fi shot, so the upconvert isn't as like crisp and clean and clear as you might want it, but I definitely can see that it's like a huge step up from like the VHS and the DVD releases. You know, really fantastic. You know, if you have never seen this film, but you've heard of it, I highly recommend it. You know, it's a pretty gross, grimy movie, and I won't spoil it, but it has like one of the most amazing, like crazy endings, which is just such a great coda for the dream-like movie that you watched. You know, like almost like an hour and 40 minutes of, you know, just a bizarre fever dream, kind of like Dementia.
Yeah.
There you go. That's another, that could be a triple feature with Dog.
You just want me to like not sleep, apparently. Just have all these like weird, messed up images in my mind.
Well,
Yeah.
but yeah, again, fantastic release though. So worth checking out.
That's great. My next film, I have a confession. I did not, right before this recording, I was like doing a little bit just of like a last minute research. And I realized that this next film I'm talking about is from the same director as Grand Slam, which I just talked about. So it was like, I watched this film from Giuliano Montaldo. The second film that I watched from him was Sacco Vanzetti, which I really liked. It's like a historical movie. It's set in Boston in 1920, and it's based on a real life case. It kind of reminded me, a couple weeks ago, I talked about the movie Zoot Suit, which took a look at a trial, but that one was a musical. This one is distinctly not a musical, but it's looking at like a controversial trial and how it impacted the community. Sacco and Vanzetti are the ones on trial, and basically these two men, they have been accused of like this crime of like inciting violence and like just all kinds of like messed up stuff. I can't remember all the stuff they've been charged with, but they have anarchist views, which the authorities kind of place these charges on them that they are innocent of, but because they have these views, they are kind of lumped into this whole culture and kind of like they are made the scapegoats for people who actually committed these crimes. And it's just like showing kind of like exposing the racism of the time and how people were can't separate like views and between actions and just the tension in America. So it's really well done. It's like a little over 2 hours, and while it can drag just a little bit, it's mostly pretty enthralling throughout. It's the court case takes up probably a good half or more of the movie, so it's like a lot of the time is spent with them trying to like work through their case. So if you like a procedural courtroom drama, this one's like a really good one that you might not be as aware of. I know my wife is like a big fan of like courtroom drama, so we watch a lot of like random ones. And surprisingly, I didn't know this was that going in, and I didn't watch this with her, so I'm gonna have to rewatch it with her sometime to let her in on this fun time. But yeah, this one it's good, and it doesn't have a new like 2K or 4K scan, but once again, it's a pretty solid older master. I liked it. It looked better than Grand Slam in my opinion, and it comes with a new audio commentary from filmmaker Alex Cox, which is fun. I always like to see him on an audio commentary, and it includes both an English and Italian audio track, which I viewed it in the English, but since most of the performers seem to be performing in English, so I stuck with that one. But it sounded good. So yeah, it's a really strong movie. Yeah, okay. I was seeing if I wrote any other notes down, but no, just a solid courtroom drama based on like true life events.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. Again, another movie that was not really on my radar, but I do love a good courtroom movie, so that is definitely something I would probably check out. My next one is definitely a weird one from the film Detective, and it is The Dancing Pirate. And has some really nice features, which I'll get into in a little bit here. Yeah, so this is pretty notable because it's kind of an early sort of like fully Technicolor film. Actually, it's billed as the first dancing musical in 100% Technicolor. It's a pretty kind of breezy action fantasy. If you like stuff like the high flying like Errol Flynn movies, I could definitely see you being into this as well. Charles Collins is the star, but Frank Morgan, I think, kind of really steals the show.
I like Frank Morgan a lot.
Yeah, I always love seeing him in things because I always, probably like 99% of everybody, like Wizard of Oz was probably the first thing you ever saw him in. So yeah, but he really has fun in this movie. He has a lot of great quips. Again, every scene he's in, he kind of steals. Yeah, it's a little bit by the numbers, but I found it engaging, especially for like a kind of like mid to late sort of action fantasy film. The company Ballyhoo does a really interesting deep dive into some different aspects of the film, like the Technicolor. Like they talk about the birth of the Technicolor film in a really cool kind of featurette. And if you're really familiar with like Film Detective, this company does a lot of really awesome kind of explorations into like different aspects of the movie, whether it be like a film producer or a certain actor or something. And this is no different. So really fantastic looking. It is early Technicolor, so the movie still looks a little rough. The colors are kind of faded. You can tell that a lot of the artifacts and stuff and scratches have been cleaned up, but they're still a little bit present. And it does kind of look a little bit on the blurry, softer side at times, but I chalk that up to probably film elements and not Film Detective necessarily, because like everything else I've seen, like across the board is like fantastic looking. Like I've never seen a shoddy restoration from them. So again, it's not perfect, but I can't imagine it looking like any better. And again, you know, early Technicolor, it always kind of looks dicey. I think Warner Archives did recently did like a early Technicolor film, but it looked much better, probably because the elements were probably like much better intact to begin with. But still worth checking out. It's, like I said, it's kind of a weird little like 1930s title that I'm kind of glad gets some love, because I like seeing like obscure movies like that get some attention. So
That sounds really cool. I will have to check that out. I still haven't gotten a lot of film detective releases, so I need to catch up.
yeah, they're great.
My next title, I'll admit, I wasn't a huge fan of this title. It comes from Scorpion Releasing, I believe. You that are Code Red. Sorry. That is Sade, about the Marquis de Sade. I will just say up front, this isn't the same person, but this is kind of how I feel about movies dealing with Casanova, and that I am kind of over it. And he just kind of fits into the same vein. I'll admit, the reason I wanted to check this out is because it stars Keir Dullea, who was in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I haven't seen him in a lot of other movies, and I wanted to see like what this dude could do outside of the like work of Stanley Kubrick. So basically the story, it's like kind of tells the real life story of this guy. And just to boil down who he is, I'll just say the term sadist comes from this guy, because he had like a messed up view on like love. I mean, if it's consensual, that's fine, but it didn't seem like it was always that way in this movie. And it kind of starts out, they try to paint a portrait of him as kind of like misunderstood a little bit. He had there's like flashbacks and stuff to his childhood. And you see early on that he was really taken with this one woman and he really wanted to be with her, but through a series of circumstances, he kind of got accidentally married to this other woman, and he thought he was marrying this other, like the girl that he liked, but he was marrying like her sister, and he's like, damn it. And it kind of ruined his life, which was pretty funny, but like also supposed to be sad. Because I was like, bro, you need to know who you're marrying before you sign on this line, really. So the rest of his life is just him kind of like fucking off and just really just having affairs with women and torturing them, and like just getting into like weird orgies and blah 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 blah. The one thing I will like say in this movie's favor is John Huston plays his uncle, I believe, or his father, one of those. And he's kind of like not like a narrator, but he's just like this presence that always just kind of like pops up and like speaks to the Marquis de Sade, and just like makes him reflect back upon his life. And just seeing John Huston be this person who's trying to like contextualize this man's life is very interesting. And I'm intrigued to see him outside of being a director, like an amazing director. He's also a pretty good actor. But this movie, like, I don't know, it was like hour and 44 minutes. It felt like 2 hours. It was a time. But it got on my nerves, really. Like, I just didn't care about this person's story. I didn't care why he was necessarily like misunderstood. If you want to see like a man have like at least a handful of orgies and kind of like subtly and not so subtly torturing women, go for it. But not my bag, as some may say, not my bag.
Yeah, that's I kind of agree. I don't really like I mean, I know it's just film, but like that like extreme violence, like the rapey kind of stuff. I just don't like. But I have some Bronson here
Ooh.
from Kino Studio Classics, and that is Breakout. There's back and slipcover, and no reversible art, just the disc. So yeah, this is a movie that, interestingly enough, I owned on DVD, but just never watched for whatever reason. So this was a really good excuse to watch it. It was pretty good. It is a like prison break movie, obviously the title. It's kind of strange because Bronson's not really in the movie until like 20 minutes in.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty fun. It's like got a great cast. Robert Duvall. It's kind of weird seeing like Bronson and Randy Quaid sidekicking together.
It's a weird pairing. It's a weird pairing, man.
It is very weird. And yeah, Quaid always kind of plays like, shall we say, pretty interesting characters. So that's no different here. I found it a little dry, to be honest, but for the most part, there's a lot of really great action. I actually watched Violent City, which is another Kino Bronson film, which we'll be covering next week. But I will say, like, that kind of is where the action is. Like, this isn't devoid of it, but I just think it wasn't like as paced as well as I think it could have been. But overall, pretty enjoyable. I mean, you can't go wrong with Bronson. Like, he has such a great charisma to him that it's almost like impossible to watch one of his movies and not be at least engaged with like his character. So yeah, if you are somebody that is into like Bronson movies, that should definitely be on your radar. Not my favorite of his, but really good.
All right. My final film, I had a mix up with this film. I'll just say that. I'll show you this. Okay, it's Sunnyside, starring Travolta. John Travolta? No. Joey Travolta, John Travolta's brother. And so I was like, okay, I love John Travolta. Let me request this movie. Got this in, started watching it, and I was just like, this guy, like, I was just like, he looks vaguely like John Travolta, but like, I know this is one of his first films. Maybe he just like grew into his face. And I kept watching and I was like, I don't think this is John Travolta. And I looked it up, I was like, Joey Travolta, what the hell? But then I realized I had read whenever this was announced that it was like John Travolta's brother. I just totally forgot about it and didn't pay attention to who was actually in this movie. But yeah, Joey Travolta is in Sunnyside. That mix up aside, this movie it's fine. It's about it's Joey's feature debut. He never achieved as much fame as his brother a couple years later, but it's basically kind of just like a standard gang drama where he's like kind of protecting his neighborhood. He runs with he's like kind of a leader of a gang, and he's trying to make his neighborhood better, and he's trying to get out of that kind of violent lifestyle. But there are people in the community who are trying to keep him like from getting on the straight and narrow, like from cleaning up his act, because he needs to protect his neighborhood. So it's kind of just standard gang stuff, like want to get out of the life but I can't. It's not the best of that genre by any means, and the ending I kind of felt was underwhelming, but it's fine. Like, I can't even say like if you're a fan of this cast you should maybe check it out, because there's not a lot of notable people besides John Travolta's brother. There's Chris Mulkey, who's like still working and a very talented actor. and he gives like an interview on the disc, like a new interview, which is pretty cool. There's also this is derived from a new 2K master, and while that is true, it is still like a very poor looking movie overall. There's lots of nicks and scratches. Like the clarity is good, but there's still a lot of damage to it pretty consistently. So it needed a little bit more cleanup, or a lot more cleanup, but I'm sure that this is the type of movie that's never been really cared for that much. So the fact that it's getting a release at all, someone out there I'm sure is happy about it. I wouldn't have seen this if I hadn't had that mix up. But I'm not sad that I saw it. I'm not like mad that I didn't think I wasted my time, but it's like probably nothing I'd really revisit again because it didn't really stand out.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, for like the handful of was it Johnny Travolta or
Joey.
no, Joey
Travolta.
Well, no, that would be kind of cool if it was like John Travolta and Johnny Travolta.
Yeah.
You had
So
that extra
close.
like so this is a movie that I was watching in chunks because my brain was kind of malfunctioning. Because it is the 7-film collection of Francis the Talking Mule.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, I'll be able to get through these. Like they're probably about an hour long, about maybe like one reelers. No, these are like full-length films. This is like an entire franchise out of this one premise. And yeah, oddly enough, it is actually based on a novel. Strangely enough, Mr. Ed is based on a some short stories. So weird pedigree of talking, horses and stuff based on literature. Who would have thought? The first I watched the first 3 so far. The first one's just called Francis, or sometimes Francis the Talking Mule. It's kind of strange, and this is something that I think is a through line in most of these films. They're like wartime set, and which is kind of strange. Well, the whole premise is kind of strange, but this takes place during the Second World War, and I found it difficult because there is a lot of slurs. Wartime, you can guess what those are. And it's not just like a little bit, it's like a lot. And most of it was just like, oh, like that was me most of the movie. Other than that, again, it's like they milk a lot out of this like premise of this like dorky, I think he's a second lieutenant, can only hear this like talking mule, and people think he's maybe mentally unsound, and that's kind of the premise. And Francis kind of helps him through like different war situations. This is an early movie for Tony Curtis, which is kind of weird. He's like in it for a teeny tiny bit. This is maybe his second or third film. Yeah, it's pretty breezy. There's some decent gags, but nothing that I think is amazing. The second film is Francis at the Races, and I think that this kind of worked a little bit better because I think it like didn't restrain itself in the wartime setting. There's a really funny sequence where Francis gets completely hammered, drunk. So there's that. Piper Laurie, who is probably best known for playing Carrie's deranged mother in Carrie, is like in this. She's like super young. It's I kind of did a double take, but that's like Piper Laurie. And then the third film is Francis at West Point, which again is doing the whole like wartime era thing, and I think the writing actually is a little bit better. Some of the gags are a little more clever this time. I kind of watched all of these films in 2 days, and at a certain point, I could just feel my kind of brain shutting down. That's why I kind of realized that there was no way I'm going to be able to like plow through all 7 of these films. I will do a lot for you guys, but I feel like I needed to break this up for my sanity. It's going to be interesting to see like how they kind of further stretch this premise, which I think is already like very thin. I mean, if you are a fan of these films, and I mean, I can definitely see how they're kind of like charming. They're like, you know, maybe they're very nostalgic. They have a lot of really love given to them. So, you know, you see all the commentary tracks, you know, and I always love a good commentary. And it's really kind of nice to hear some really good professionals talk about these films. I mean, again, you know, you get the historical aspects and some background information on the original source material. And so it's really interesting. I don't want to give too much away about some of the commentary tracks, but it's really a nice deep dive. So it'll be interesting to check out the final 4. I feel like I can make it.
You got this.
So,
Just so you know, I'm on this journey with you too. I've been watching them as well.
are you okay? What are you?
I'm like 50 minutes into the second one, and I think I'm enjoying them more than you are.
I don't hate them. It's kind of wild just how like it's almost just sort of the same joke recycled, but in different situations.
Yeah.
But I will say that they really do put him in really funny situations. I think it was the third film where he's like looking at like, I guess it's like coded as sort of like a naughty book that he's not supposed to be looking at. And again, this is where my brain is just like fighting to cling to any kind of sanity. But yeah, if you like these films, again, they are available. They actually look really good. There is a little bit of like artifacts and scratches, but for the most part, it seems really like cleaned up and nice. The black and white footage has really good contrast where it doesn't look like overly bright, but it doesn't look like super faded. It has a nice crisp kind of look to it. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how this epic saga wraps up.
I mean, I was very surprised when I started the second movie that it did actually just continue from the first movie. Like
Mhm.
they didn't try to like pretend it didn't happen. It was like the last scene of the first movie was kind of redone at the beginning of the second movie. And they just continued on. And I'm like, oh, there's more continuity to this series than I anticipated. I thought it was going to
Yeah,
be probably like
and
each thing is its own thing.
and not to spoil anything, but the third film actually does kind of refer to the events of at least the first film. So it's like a continuation, and I guess the second film was just sort of like its own thing or whatever. So yeah, it'll be interesting to also kind of talk to you about the whole like series as a whole. Yeah, I know a lot of people were really excited about this release because again, it's kind of not super obscure, but like I haven't really seen a lot of home video stuff for the series. So it's not to say there wasn't any, but I think that this might be the first time it's been in Blu-ray on the US anyways. So and with that, I think that wraps up this edition of the Video Attic. So as always, if you enjoy this content, consider giving me a like and subscribing, commenting, all that great stuff. we have a all horror movies edition of this coming up as a bonus episode, so you don't want to miss out on that. So subscribe, and that way you won't miss any videos. So thanks for hanging out with us.